Yo, what is up, guys? It's Pedro here. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys three Redskins players that will have breakout years in 2020. If you guys are new, subscribe for Redskins and NFL content, so let's get into it. As you guys know, we have so many young players on this Redskins team, so there's so many candidates of players that could have breakout years in 2020, but I'm going to be giving you guys my three players, and I'm not counting Dwayne Haskins because I'm making a separate video on that. But number one, Steven Sims. So Steven Sims is about 5'10", 180 pounds, and was an undrafted free agent last year that we signed. And he played absolutely great in his rookie year. But if you just look at the stats, it's not amazing. But if you look at the advanced stats, it's a lot better than you think. First of all, he only started 33%, or only played in 33% of the snaps. And in the games he played, total last year, 34 catches for 310 yards. 9.1 yards per catch, 4 touchdowns. Also, had 9 rushes for 85 yards and had a kick return touchdown. So he was a weapon absolutely everywhere, receiving, rushing, and in the special teams game. But if you look at his advanced stats, like I said, only 33% of the snaps he played. And if you look at his game log, he really only started getting playing time in the last half of the year when we weren't doing so well. And if you look at the last 4 games where he got targeted 5 times or more, he got about 230 yards receiving. So that's 4 out of 16 games. If you multiply that out by 4 to 16 games, that's about 920 yards. That if he would have played the whole year, that's about what he would have gotten. And yeah, I'm not saying that he's going to get 900 yards next year, but I think if he's healthy and if he plays the whole year and we target him a bunch, I think he could get about 700 to 1,000 yards next year. I know that's asking for a lot. He's going to be the starting slot receiver for us most likely next year, so I think his role is going to increase even more than it did in the last couple games of the season. So I am super excited to see what Steven Sims does this year, because I think he's going to be in for a big year. And also, his last 4 games, he had 4 total touchdowns, 4 total receiving touchdowns. And so I just think if he would have played a lot more last year and would have gotten more targets, I really do think he would have had 500 plus yards. And he did play a lot better with Dwayne Haskins. If you look at the total games, didn't really get any targets at all really until week 10, and then really didn't get much at all until week 13 after that. And 7 targets isn't even that much. It's a decent amount, but it is not that much. So I think next year he's going to probably average around 6 or 7 targets a game, which is going to be way more than he did last year. So that's why I think he's going to get a lot more production next year. And he's been working out a lot this offseason with the same receiver coach that Antonio Brown and Des Bryant have. And the receiver coach said he's going to be a star in this league. And I agree. Look for big things this year for Steven Sims, especially since Dwayne Haskins is going to be throwing to him, which he played better with last year. Some other receiver candidates, Kelvin Harmon, AGG, but I think Steven Sims is the most likely. Next is Sean Dion Hamilton, and this might surprise a lot of you guys, but this is my linebacker breakout player. Actually, one of my breakout players on defense. Last year, he didn't play great, but he's still 24 years old, played in 16 games last year, didn't start a single game, had 1 interception, 2 pass deflections, and a forced fumble. Had about 50 tackles. If you look at the advanced stats, in coverage, he allowed 50% completion percentage and about a 52.8 passer rating, which is super good by Sean Dion Hamilton. His tackling percentage is also very good, and I know PFF isn't the best website for grades and everything, but they graded him very well. His tackling was the 9th in the NFL, I think, for linebackers, and his coverage was 2nd in the NFL. Here are some of the other players on our roster right now that are linebackers what they graded out last year. Rubin Foster is not on this list because he did not play last year, but overall he played really good when he was on the field last year, and I think with Jack Del Rio, I think he's going to use him well, and I think he might end up starting a couple games. We'll see. If he ends up starting, honestly, guys, he's going to have a huge year. Sorry about that. Look for a couple interceptions, a few forced fumbles, and maybe 100 tackles if he's able to play a lot this season, and a couple sacks. He can do everything. He got a little bigger last offseason, which is good. He's about 6 foot, 235 pounds, but I'm expecting a big year for him this year. This is kind of his prove it year. It's going to be his third year in the league, but I think if we use him right, if he's a starter or if he comes in, I think he's going to have a big year last year. He really wasn't used much at all last year, and that's why his production wasn't that great, but his stats when he was in were very good. Next player, the last player on this list, and then I'll go through some other guys that could break out but less in depth. The next guy on this list is Montes Sweat. Montez Sweat played absolutely great last year. Started off a little slow, but then picked it up in the last few games of the season. He played in 16 games, started all 16 of them, had 2 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles, 7 sacks, 50 total tackles, played and 13 QB hits, 8 tackles for loss. So played really good last year, especially for a rookie. Those stats in general are pretty good for any player, but for a rookie, it's even better. 7 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. And remember, guys, that's with Greg Minuski dropping him back in coverage a decent amount of the time. This year, in the 4-3, he is not going to drop back in coverage almost never. He's going to be rushing the quarterback, and he might get a little more breaks this year because of Chase Young, Ryan Kerrigan. But when he's on the field, I think he's going to get a lot more pass rush attempts. And I'm thinking 10 plus sacks this year for Montez Sweat, just because he had 7 last year. He played a lot better in the later half of the season, which because obviously a lot of rookies do that, and I think he's going to play even better next year. Let's look at his game logs and see how he did from the beginning to the end of the season. So if you look at his first few games, he didn't get a sack until week 3 against Chicago, and then didn't get another sack until he got half a sack against San Francisco, then got a sack against Buffalo, and then really started to pick it up after that. A sack against Detroit, a sack sack and a half against Carolina, and 2 sacks against Dallas. And he actually got robbed of a sack against Dallas because he sacked Dak Prescott, but they didn't count it. So he really would have had more. And he also got hurt in a couple games. If you look at the snaps percentage, he did get hurt, I believe, in the Detroit game. At the end of the game, he had to miss like the last quarter. And against Carolina, he missed the last part of the game with an injury. In that game, he was playing absolutely great with 1.5 sacks. So really had a great underrated year last year. And I think with the addition of Chase Young and the development of Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne, I really do think he's going to be able to get so many more opportunities. And maybe it doesn't result in sacks. Maybe he just has 7-8 sacks again next year, but he gets a lot more QB hits and a lot more pressures on the quarterback, which is really important. So I think look out for a big year from Montez Sweat. I'm really excited to see what he does this year. I'm expecting, like I said, 10 plus sacks, or if not 10 plus sacks, maybe like 7.5 sacks, a couple forced fumbles, and a lot more pressures and a lot more tackles for a loss than last year, because it's going to be tough to double team him or Chase Young, because we got 5 Pro Bowl caliber players on the D-line. So now I'm going to go over a couple other players that I think could be potential breakout players next year, and then we'll call it a video. If you guys want me to do another one of these videos, let me know in the comments down below. But a couple other players, obviously Dwayne Haskins, I think he could have a huge year this year, but I'm going to make a separate video of him. And then another guy on the offense is Wes Martin. I think if he starts, I think he could emerge as a good starter this year. He played good when he played last year at the end of the season, so look out for him. And then also, like I said earlier, Kelvin Harmon, if he does end up starting, I think he's going to have a big year. If he doesn't end up starting, though, I still think he's going to get 400 to 600 yards. But if he starts, it could be 500 to 700 or 800. We will see. And then on defense, I really think Those were the two that I said are really the only breakout candidates. You could also add Jimmy Moreland, who didn't have a great year last year, but was playing better in the later half. So that's my breakout players. Let me know if you guys have any other breakout players. Oh, also, sorry, Ryan Anderson is a breakout player that I have, especially in the 4-3. I think he's going to be rushing the passer a lot more as an outside linebacker. So yeah, those are my breakout players. Let me know what you guys think about them, who you think will break out this year, and what you think about the players that I said. Do you think Steven Sims will get 700 plus yards? I honestly think he can. If you look at the amount of time he really played, I think he could have a huge year this year. Same with Sean Dion Hamilton, didn't play much, and I think Montes Sweat will benefit a ton from Jack Del Rio getting hired by the Redskins, and also Chase Young being drafted, plus the development of our D-line. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please smash the like button. And guys, subscribe if you guys are new, and turn on those post notifications. And peace.